to supplement what you're studying in government. You know, you got a textbook, you got other resources, you got a heck of a lot more resources than I had when I was your age to study government. And you got a teacher, but sometimes those of us that are in government full-time can bring a human factor to it that maybe you don't get out of the book. So by being informal, I mean I want you to feel free to ask questions about issues in Congress, or if you want to ask any personal questions about me, or if you want to ask any political questions, I'd be glad to try to answer those as well. And I always, whenever I go to a high school class or a college class, I try to tell people about my intern program. I have 7 college interns in the fall, 7 in the spring, and then during the summer, I have so many applicants that we have 2 6-week sessions of 7 each. So over the course of a year, if people take advantage of the opportunity, and most of the time we do fill up all the slots. I interact with 25 to 30 college interns. Your mom and dad have to give you permission to come to Washington to live, and it's not exactly a cheap place to live. You're on your own, except when you report to work at 9 in the morning and leave at 6 in the afternoon. You intermingle with the staff, like they have a cubicle and a computer and a telephone, you do too. You have work, share work with other people, and about half of my staff of 25 or 26 in Washington, D.C., maybe a little more than half, are former college interns, so it gives you a chance to look at government, whether it's all of government or whether it's just Congress, for an opportunity to see if that's the kind of work that maybe you'd be interested in doing. Now, you're in a government class and probably not all of you are really enthused about the study of government, so I'm speaking to those that maybe want to go beyond just learning about the basics of government, because it's a wonderful opportunity to learn. Beyond that, again, assuming that some of you are more interested in government than what you get out of the classroom, if you want to follow what we do, we already talked about Twitter, but Facebook, my website, grassley.senate.gov, would have my speeches and my press releases on, so you know what my positions are and what I've been involved in. If you want to get a weekly e-newsletter called The Scoop, I put that out on Fridays usually. And then when we're in session, I try to do a video of YouTube. And also, lately I've been starting to do answering some questions by Skype. Now, we get a lot of questions to answer by Skype, but I only try to do about 5 or 6 in 15 minutes or so. So you got to answer them in, I think, 2 minutes and 15 seconds. So maybe 5 or 6 questions, and then the rest of them we answer in writing. I just about forgot this in the other class, and some student reminded me about communicating with us. So I'm going to be with you for a half hour. I always tell my town meetings when I'm at the library up here and I have a town meeting, usually there for an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half. I always say it doesn't do me much good to come before you, or in this case a class here at Waverly High School, if you don't keep up the communication when you can't see me face to face. So you can email me, postal mail me, call in a position. We respond to every communication we get, and if I don't respond to you, write me an answer letter and ask me why I didn't answer your letter, because I want to keep up this two-way communication when I can't see you face to face. And when I say two-way communication, it's pretty important, because I consider those of us elected to office to represent our people one half of the process, and you're the other half of the process. And if you're going to have representative governments, we've got to have dialogue. So here for a few minutes, we're going to have dialogue as part of the process of representative government. So now I'm ready to go to your questions, or I said questions, but maybe some of you just want to give me your opinion on something. So either way, feel free to speak to me as your representative in the Senate. Go ahead. Who wants to speak first? Yes.
What's one of the biggest like discussions going on right now in Congress, other than fiscal cliff?
Yeah, the fiscal cliff isn't over, except for the tax provisions we passed a week ago. And the reason it can't be over just passing a bill a week ago is because the president wanted more revenue, so we passed a bill to raise revenue. It takes care of about 60%, or no, just well, let me be on the outside. 10% of the deficit problem we have. What about the other 90%? That's the expenditure side of the ledger. So we got to deal with that. So to answer your question, there's 3 instances between now and the deadlines have to be sometime late February, March the 2nd, and then March 27th. The debt limit increase will come up sometime late February. And then the fiscal cliff thing on the expenditure side you brought up has to be decided by March the 2nd. And then when we appropriated money for this fiscal year on October the 1st, that's the beginning of the fiscal year, we made decisions only for the first 6 months. So that runs out March 27th. And if we don't continue funding, then government's shut down, or the government won't shut down. So sometime between now and March 27th, we got to decide how much money to spend for the next 6 months of this fiscal year. So those are that'll take up most of our time when the president's sworn in, January 21st, then the rest of January, February, and March. Okay, next question. Don't be bashful now. You know, it usually takes one student to get something started, and then from that point on, it's real easy. Thank you.
What are your feelings about gun control?
Basically, and then I'll get into more detail, the Second Amendment gives people the right to have guns. Second Amendment right. So since it's a constitutional right, you have to be very careful when you legislate about doing away with guns or certain restrictions on guns. It can be legislated at the federal level, where I am, or it can be legislated at the level of each of the 50 states. So you got states like Vermont that have hardly any gun laws at all, or you got places like California where they got very strict gun laws, or New York City, or Chicago, where they got very strict gun laws. But still, the right to own and possess firearms is a constitutional right. Where there have been restrictions, like for instance, for I think almost 80 years, you can't own a submachine gun, see, as an example. There's other restriction states, not so many restrictions at the federal level. There are restrictions on who can own guns, like for instance, if you committed a felony, you can't own a gun. If you got mental health problems, you can't own a gun. Now, because of the recent deaths in Connecticut, there's a lot of talk about more gun control. There's some areas I think would be pretty non-controversial that we ought to be able to legislate in more areas. One of them would be in the mental health area. The other one would be in the area where under law of 5 or 6, maybe 7 years ago, states are supposed to report to the FBI people that have committed crimes, other reasons people shouldn't own guns, like maybe mental health issues. The states aren't reporting that information, and so we don't have in our database enough information of some people that shouldn't have guns are still able to buy guns. And so legislating in that area, I think, would be fairly easy coming up in this next session, after we get beyond these budget problems that I just answered for questions here. If you have a follow-up question, I'll be glad to answer it. Okay, next question. Yeah.
You know about the Grover Northwest pledge, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What do you think about its relevancy today? Like I know a lot of Republicans came out saying that it was an old pledge and that some new taxes had to be passed. What's your views?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm not a signature to, I'm one of about 5 or 6 Republicans that haven't signed the Northwest petition. I don't sign petitions generally, so it's not a case of my disagreeing with him. In fact, I have great agreement with him, but I don't like to sign petitions because I think it locks you in. In other words, if I signed your petition today, how do I know if I'm in office 4 years from now what the situation might be? And one of the things that I think is very important for us in government, most people, including probably more you young people than older people, are cynical about those of us in politics, you know, to reduce that cynicism. So I think if I sign a petition and then violate that petition for good reasons down the road, it causes you to be more cynical. So I want to protect myself against that and build up respect for government generally, because I think it's very important that we do what we can to build up respect for authority in government. But anyway, I think that when you're dealing with the extreme problems that we have right now, almost everything's got to be on the table. And that could include taxes, but I don't want you to think that taxes is the first place I'd go. It'd be the last place I would go. Because, and I'll bore you when I say this, but for 50 years, if you had a statistical chart in front of you, I won't draw one, but I'll kind of demonstrate it this way. For 50 years between, let's say, the end of World War II and now, that's about 70 years, come to think of. But the federal government's taken in about 18 to 19% of gross national product. Been fairly constant. It's a level of taxation that people don't revolt against, and it seems like it hasn't hurt the economy. And government then is generally spent a little bit more than that, 19, 20%, let's say. And that's why you have deficits, because you have to spend more than you bring in. But now government has grown to about 24, 25% of gross national product. And I don't want to bring more money through the government because the government consumes wealth. It doesn't create wealth. You guys create wealth. I'll bet half of you folks have jobs here, I'll bet. They're earning some money, you know. It's the people that are working out there that are creating the wealth. So if I take money away from you, you know, so I think we have more of a spending problem than we have a taxing problem. In fact, when I have my town meetings, I have people complaining like maybe you're complaining about spending too much money. I don't have people saying, you know, boy, I'm under tax. No, they're saying Congress overspends. Okay, next question. Does that answer your question, or do you have a question? Come on. I always tell my town meetings when we have a lapse like this, if you knew how much you paid me per minute, you wouldn't waste a minute to ask me a question. Yes.
I guess my question is, what's your views on, I guess, repealing Obamacare or keeping it?
Yeah. I voted against it when it passed, and one time we had a vote to repeal it. We only got 46 votes, I think, and I voted to repeal it. I think it's bad for the economy, but I think now it's the law of the land. So, one or two things. You keep going down this road, but maybe people wake up to the fact that this isn't such a good idea and it might be changed. But I don't think it'll be repealed. But I think a lot of things are going to show up that's bad for our healthcare system, that it'll be changed to some extent. And I'll probably be one of those, probably leading the way to help change it as best we can.
How much do you travel between Washington, D.C. and here?